Yeah, so I want to bring up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to get Matt's perspective on this. I'm a little bit worried about T. Higgins, and if you have followed our work on FFT for a while, you know that I love T. Higgins over the past few years. But I think we saw some concerning signs last year, and mostly it was that Jamar has seems to truly be ascending into like Justin Jefferson level, just complete stardom, wide receiver one. He was 99th percentile, Jamar was, in yards per route run rate versus man coverage in 2021 and sustained that in 2022. But what he really improved on was his ability to draw targets versus man coverage all the way up to 98th percentile in 2022 from 63rd percentile as a rookie. And we just saw across the board, Jamar was targeted in all different situations much more often as his average depth of target dropped, and they incorporated him into more of a wide receiver one role. And I'm worried about what that means for T. Higgins. We did see a slight dip in Higgins' ability to draw targets and his efficiency versus man coverage last year. And then just overall, not even within the scope of man coverage, T. Higgins' target per route run rate was way down. He had an identical target per route run rate to Mike Evans and to Cortland Sutton. Those are guys that just don't draw targets at a high rate, not guys that we're super excited about for fantasy. And I think T. Higgins is maybe falling into more of this risky wide receiver two type of role. Obviously, the offense is so good that he's going to outproduce that most weeks. But yeah, Matt, are you worried at all about T. Higgins? Oh, the last thing I wanted to bring up is Jamar was doubled on 19% of his routes, Matt. I think I read on reception perception, and only Justin Jefferson was doubled on a higher rate. And it's like, if T. Higgins still isn't drawing the targets with Jamar being doubled like that, like, is that something we've got to be concerned about?
Yeah, let me say this about Tee Higgins as a player. I ranked him 7th on that list we mentioned up at the top, the Yahoo article, the guys that are 25 and under. Love Tee Higgins as a player. His profile just hit receptionperception.com yesterday. He clears 70% success rate versus man and press, which is really important as a guy like that is a true, that has that X receiver archetype. He's that type of player. So this is no shade to Tee Higgins, who also might be the best ball winner in the NFL. Like, I think he's a true legit 1B receiver and a guy that if he was playing for a bunch of other teams, he'd be the number one receiver. So he's a really good player. The problem is, Jacob, like you mentioned, Jamar Chase is just really, really good. Like he's better. He's a top 5 receiver in the NFL right now. I think this is an absolutely insane reception perception note for Jamar Chase. And I guarantee I'm going to say this, and like nobody listening or watching is going to geek out as much as I do, but this is really important. Chase has posted an exact 75.3% success rate versus man coverage in his rookie and his sophomore season. He also cleared 80% success rate versus zone and press. Like that's 75, 80. That's the elite receivers in the NFL. Like if you go and look in the historic RP database, that is like all your studs. And he did all this while, despite the fact that the 9 route was his most frequently run route in both of his rookie and sophomore season. Like that is an insane level to get, like the insane level to get open while running the most difficult route, the one that has the lowest average success rate. It is just nuts. And again, he's another guy who is a complete player. He doesn't have any holes in his game. He's great after the catch. He's a great 50-50 ball receiver. I had a conversation with him a few months ago at the Super Bowl where we talked about like how good he is as a route runner technically and how much he is dedicated to that part of the game. He's just a great receiver that is like on an insane upward trajectory, the Justin Jefferson trajectory, as you mentioned, Jacob. So that's the real reason to be like concerned about Tee Higgins from a fantasy perspective, is that as good of a player as he is, defenses know Chase is the alpha. The Bengals are starting to treat Chase like he's the clear alpha here. And again, that's no shade to Tee Higgins' skill set, who I made this note in his reception perception profile, like the double coverage metric that you mentioned, Jacob. Yeah, like when they're on the field, Chase is getting those double teams. He's getting the extra defensive attention. However, I included 3 games for Higgins where Chase wasn't playing, and at least 2 of those 3 defenses, like they doubled Tee Higgins at a really high rate. So that's the thing, is like teams know that Tee Higgins could be an alpha, but only when Jamar Chase is like not there. So I understand the concern there, but it's really just comes back to just how good of a player Chase is.
I'm not even a little bit concerned about Tee Higgins. I think he's one of the easiest draft picks if you can get him in the 3rd round. Because if it's 12-team league, now a non-PPR league, you might go crazy running back heavy, but half or full PPR, I know that you're right about Tee Higgins' upside, Jacob. I mean, you make a good point. He's never going to be – I don't think he's ever going to be a top 5 wide receiver as long as Jamar Chase is on the field. That's not in the cards. but he could easily be top 15. And I think his floor is super high as well. If you look at what he did last year, he was wide receiver 21 per game, but he played 3 games where he barely played. And he had 2 catches in those 3 games. They completely kill his per game averages for fantasy. But Tee Higgins, to me, his upside is capped because of Chase, but he is going to be such an easy 3rd round pick. Once you start to get in the 3rd round, you have to make some really tough choices, right? You have to, like, I took Breece Hall late in the 3rd round yesterday in a draft. But you might start seeing a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs creep up in there. You might see a guy like Drake London creep up in there. Tee Higgins to me is one of the most certain top 30 picks. I don't want to necessarily take him in the top 20, but late round 2 to mid round 3 in a 12-team league, he's a layup for me, even though I know his upside is capped. I think he has one of the highest floors of it. Like, I'd take him over Devontae Smith. I think he has a higher floor than Devontae Smith. And
it's funny you mentioned that too, because like there's a ton of dudes in that tier of like drafts. Jalen Waddle has the same problem. Devontae Smith, who you mentioned, has the same problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The good news for Tee Higgins is that he's tethered to, I think, the best pure passer of those 3. And I mean, probably just the best quarterback period of those 3. And he's just a great fit as a ball winner with Joe Burrow, who's like, I probably think the best contested catch thrower in the NFL right now. So I'm with you, Adam, that like saying concerned about Tee Higgins, again, it sounds too harsh. I just think, the point about the upside is fair.